What is up, y'all? Welcome back. Time to bring out big irons, also known as big bore revolvers. These things are a handful. These are the Magnum Research BFRs. One's chambered in 444 Marlin. The other one is chambered in, get ready for this one, 500 Bushwhacker. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but it's a total handful. It's the actually meanest cartridge you can put in a revolver currently. It is the most powerful handgun cartridge in the world. The 444 Marlin is no lightweight either. It's right up there with 4570 just about. This thing delivers a lot of recoil to you. There is no muzzle brake on this one to help it, like there is on the 500 Bushwhacker. The cool thing about the 500 Bushwhacker, though, is you can actually download this, whatever you want to call it, but you can also chamber the 500 Magnum in it and 500 Special. So that's really cool. There's another one in there. I'll put it up in the corner. I can never remember it, but these things are, like I said, monsters, powerhouses, but are they for you? Are they for your average shooter? I know a lot of people want them. They think that they're cool, but should you buy one? I can never tell you to buy anything because that would be against the rules of YouTube or anything like that. And I wouldn't tell you what to do with your money anyway. But we're going to go through a couple things in this video to try to help you understand these revolvers a little bit and if they are right for you or not. So this conversation is pretty much going to focus on the Magnum Research BFRs. I'm not going to go into the Smith & Wesson X frames or anything else. I want to keep it to these. These are available. They're pretty well known, and they're the huge ones. They're the big ones. You can get the short cylinder models, but they're still pretty big revolvers anyway. BFR has its own special meaning to certain people, and it's true. It's basically a big freaking revolver. But you can get these things in like this, 444 Marlin, 500 Magnum. You can get it in something odd like 30-30. That's a rifle cartridge, a true bottleneck rifle cartridge. But you got 450 Marlin and a bunch of other things. So having different barrel lengths, different cylinder styles, different grip styles, actually, you can get them with totally different, you know, you can get the pearl type of grips. It's going to be a different story than these Hogue rubber grip type things. I don't know if that's Hogue or not, but regardless. Now, T2 Armory takes it a step farther. They chamber these things in 500 Bushwhacker. That's taking it to the total top of the power scale. They have these muzzle brakes attached to them so that you can actually shoot that safely without destroying yourself. We want to sometimes destroy things downrange, but you don't want to destroy yourself. This really makes the gun super shootable. But the price is no joke for either one of these. A basic BFR is going to cost you a whole lot of money. I'm not going to talk about prices today because I don't want to get in trouble, but we're up there. They're not cheap. You can find out just how much. If you want one converted to 500 Bushwhacker, now we're going to have to pay a little bit more. And no matter what, the ammunition for these type of things is usually on the costly side too. And that's just me being honest. You know that we're a no BS channel and we're going to come out right out front with that. None of this is cheap. But the thing is that you get a good value. I don't know really how to say it too well other than if you're used to mag dumping 9mm, you're going to pay whatever, you know the price, for a box of 9mm. And you can go through 50 rounds very quickly. If you start shooting something like a, 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, things like that, now you're in a wheel gun and you can kind of stretch that box out a little farther. You can enjoy it a little bit slower, loading 5 or 6 rounds at a time or more. But the bottom line is that box goes a little bit slower. It is more costly, but there's kind of a benefit to having that enjoyability of the bigger cartridges. When you get to things like this, you're not going to rip through a box of 50, trust me. So a lot of people talk about the cost of 500 Magnum, 500 Bushwhacker, things like that. Yes, it does cost a lot more per round than 9mm, 45, or even 357 or 44. However, you're not ripping through them. You can enjoy them. It's more of a one-cylinder type of deal, and then you're pretty much good for the day, at least in my opinion. And when you're hunting with them, we're talking about one round at a time. So expensive to get into, yes, but definitely not as far as when you consider the price of your basic Glock or something like that and then going through cases of ammunition. It's a different type of enjoyment and you have to pay for it sometimes. I will attach this one little caveat to that conversation about price. If you are a hand loader or reloader, it definitely saves you a lot of money. It stretches your enjoyment out that much farther. There are a lot of options for projectiles, believe it or not. In all these things, you can get it done. Sometimes sourcing brass can be a problem, but once you have it, if you take care of it, you've got it. Hand loading is great, hand loading is awesome, and it's really not that bad to load the big stuff as long as you follow all the safety protocols. Now let's talk about size. These things are not small. Here's my hand compared to that cylinder. No joke at all. Holding that in my hand, you can see, I mean, it's probably halfway out of the frame of the camera, but this is a 10-inch barrel. You can get them shorter, of course, but 10 inches and longer is not uncommon. This is a 7-inch barrel here on this Bushwhacker, but once you put that enormous monster brake on there right there, it becomes 10 inches again. You can see that when these two are side by side. Now, with all that metal and with that big frame and with that big cylinder, there's a lot of weight. So if you're weak-wristed, if you have problems holding up big guns, this is definitely a really big gun. So forget the recoil. We're going to talk about that for a second, but just holding these guns steady, one-handed is definitely a hard deal, but even two-handed, it can be a little bit of a challenge to hold the barrel steady, to keep your sight steady. So if you have any type of a weakness with the bigger revolvers, this might not be for you. But if you're able to do it and you love to just mess around with big guns, it shouldn't be a problem. Big framed people, I'm not going to say that they're better shooters, because a lot of big framed people are actually terrible shooters, but big frame people are going to have a lot better time with this gun. Don't buy this for your 100-pound girlfriend. I promise you that's not a good idea. And if you're a guy and you're 100 pounds, I don't know what to say, but I probably would stay away from these revolvers. Now, the obvious one that's going to be standing right out in front of everybody, and they've probably been just wondering why I haven't got to it yet, is recoil. But recoil is pretty strong in some of these guns. Brake or not, they're not light. Like I said, you can put this 500 special in this one and you can tone it down a little bit, but let's demonstrate some recoil so you know what you're getting into. Now, as far as recoil management on a revolver like this, I'm going to show you my style. Other people may do it other ways. Some people may choose to use a padded glove for this, and that might help you big time. I kind of slip in the glove, so I don't exactly like them. But when I'm gripping the gun, I do get as high as I can as long as it's comfortable, kind of like getting high in the backstrap of a polymer striker fired gun or a 1911, something like that. I want to get a little bit high and choked up on that grip a little bit. I don't want to be low by any means where I'm going to get my wrist torqued out of control. So I want to get a little bit high up on it, and I want to wrap around tightly. I take this hand and I wrap around and I pull my thumb down and I hammer like that. I reacquire that grip on my thumb, and I'm creating a pretty good wrap around the revolver. When I go ahead and I pull the trigger, I let the gun recoil. I let it go up. I don't fight the gun and strong arm everything. I have to let this gun ride up. I have to let it do its thing. It's going to torque over to the left, some more than others, some cartridges more than others, but you want to let it ride a little bit. So you're going to see a ton of recoil, and you're going to see my wrist torque. That's just the name of the game with these guns, so pay attention to that and make sure it's something that you're ready to deal with. You cannot fight these guns down usually unless you're a total monster. If you do, you're just going to absorb a ton of what is called just hurt and pain through your wrist. It's better to let them ride. All right, what we have here is just a basic hand load for this 444 Marlin. That's a 240 grain full metal jacket round. It's got some IMR, whatever, I can't remember the numbers in it, but I'm just going to show you a one-handed recoil so you do see how we get some rise. I'm not going to help the gun at all with the second hand. Pretty stout recoil. Comes through the finger a little bit. Get ready to have it. Go ahead and slam back into your hand just a little bit. With some of them, if you don't have the proper grip, you can actually get hit by the trigger guard just a little bit. It's odd, but it happens. But it does have a little flip. It's not terrible. That one's not super painful. And we can get much more stout with a 444. But it's controllable. It's doable if you can do it, if that makes any sense. All right, now we have the 500 Bushwhacker, which was a 500 Magnum. Like I said, it can take both of them. We're going to load in an XTP loaded with little gun. We're going to have a that's going to be the first one. The next one's going to be an FTX loaded with little gun also. And then we have that very famous Underwood 700 grainer. That is the factory loaded one. I did not reload that. That'll be the third one we shoot. So we'll put those three in there and we'll see how these feel out of this one. Again, I'm going to do it one-handed, not to show off or anything. It's handleable. I just want to show you the actual recoil. That's a different story. So that was a little more than the softy load I showed you for the 444. And actually, that's enough to go ahead and slam the back of that trigger guard into that knuckle. I don't have that super monster grip, like I said, but you probably saw that. We're going to have that in there. You already did see it in slow motion, but that was the XTP. Let's go for the FTX, which is definitely, I think I have these loaded pretty darn hot. They give me a little bit of a problem with case extraction, actually. You probably saw me shaking a little bit, getting ready to get through that trigger, but I kept it lined up enough to hit, and I would say that's probably about the same amount of recoil. And remember, we are being helped by a muzzle brake. So from what I've heard, I've never shot them, but the 500 Magnum versions of these can actually be quite freaking violent without a brake. So I've heard they're not fun to shoot whatsoever. Keep that in mind, that I've heard from very reputable sources they're not enjoyable, really. But that's some people love pain, they love to torture themselves, and if you're just doing one or two at a time, I guess whatever. But I wouldn't go through cylinder after cylinder and break your wrist over some fun. Now we have that 700 grainer in there, and I'm sure that's going to be a beast in here. The faster they go, the better they work with that muzzle brake. This one's not going super fast, but whoa, wow. That is no joke. That rocked me pretty good. That did sting in here pretty good, and I did crack my knuckles right there on the back of that trigger guard. So that's a handful. That's a horse, and I actually almost missed the plate with that one, I think, if I'm looking at the right one. I don't even know. But definitely a handful. We're going to move up to 500 Bushwhacker in a second, but first, let's show you what happens when you tame it down with 500 Special. So now we have comparably some very cute little cartridges here. That's 500 Special. It's actual Starline brass. 500 Special is a real thing. I have it loaded with tight group, and I have an XTP in the front of it. So we'll show you right now the versatility of these guns, at least some of them. So you don't always have to try to destroy yourself. Sometimes you can just have fun with what actually kind of equates to this gun's version of a cowboy load. That is nothing. You can see my muzzle shaking out here as I hold it. It's because it's a heavy gun. I don't have the best wrists anymore, so I got to work through that trigger at just the right time to make that double action, which is a very sensitive trigger. I got to work through it just right, just the way that I have to do it to touch it off at the exact moment. But you saw that that was completely lightweight compared to what we were shooting. Just about anybody that does shoot big revolvers like 44 and up can shoot that with no problem. It's just a matter of getting a hold of the brass. Sometimes you can find factory available 500 Special, but not very often. All right, now let's move on to the 500 Bushwhacker. This is the mean one. T2 Armory's creation. This is a 500 grain Bengal bullet up here in the front. This is a total stretched out 500 Magnum. This thing is like a torpedo going into the torpedo tube. You can see how it pretty much fills up that big long cylinder. You can get a few more grains of lead in there, and they do, but this 500 grainer is no joke in itself. So let's go ahead and slide that to the right position for a single action revolver. Two hands on this one, and are you ready, camera guy? Yep. Jeez, you saw a lot of smoke. I can taste the smoke. Yeah, that thing is no joke at all. I can't say that enough. So 500 Bushwhacker, that is what you're going to get with some 500 grain round. That's the recoil you'll get. And as much as I know what that 500 Bushwhacker is, it catches me off guard just about every time. Jeez. Another big consideration when thinking about purchasing one of these revolvers is going to be, do you have a place to shoot them? Not only a place to shoot them, but a safe place to shoot them. So a place to shoot them would be, do you have a range? Do you have your own outdoor range? Do you have a buddy's house? Do you live on a farm? Where do you live? If you live somewhere where you don't have a range, you're going to have to go to an indoor range or an outdoor range. But most of us go to indoor ranges, and if you walk in there with this, they might have a real problem with that. They're just going to see it. Maybe they have a 50 caliber restriction or a 460 50 caliber. You know, they have a list of things they won't let you use. They see this, they kind of worry about their backstop, and they worry about holes in the floor and ceiling. You walk in there with something like this, they're probably just actually going to laugh and say, no, we don't care what it is. You're probably not shooting that in here, especially because of the people in the stalls next to you and whatnot. A lot of ranges just don't like this kind of stuff. If you go to an outdoor range, sometimes they don't like anything 50 cal. Now, if you do have a range, you have to make sure you're doing it safely also. Make sure that your backstop is proper. These are big cartridges. These are big, powerful rounds. It's not like a backstop for a 9mm or for your 22 or whatever you've been shooting. Make sure your backstop is proper, and make sure, I guess, if you're in any kind of an area where you do have people around you shooting, have courtesy and let them know that you're about to let this thing go off, because you can really wreck someone's hearing pretty bad. And the final thing I'm going to touch on, if you're thinking about getting one of these revolvers, is are you ready to get a new addiction, or at least try to hold a new addiction down? Because let me tell you, I said there's a whole bunch of varieties and I want them all. Not necessarily the short cylinder ones, those ones don't interest me too much, but all the big ones, I definitely want all the chamberings. I can't afford all the chamberings, so I have to tamp that addiction thing down. We're all addicted one way or another. If you're watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It actually started with a BFR thing for me with the 500 Bushwhacker. I had X-frame Smith & Wessons, so I never really saw the need to have a BFR, but then I got this one. And then before you know it, I saw the 444 Marlin, and that's kind of an obscure cartridge that I wanted to mess with anyway, so I had to have that. Now, trust me, there's about 6 other ones on my list. Maybe someday I'll have enough money to have a whole case dedicated just to BFRs, but not yet. They're big, they're beautiful, they're kind of expensive, but boy, are they fun. They're a handful to shoot most of the time. For me, right now, at this age, I say yes. 20 years from now, I might give these things up totally. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you know someone else that might enjoy it, share it with them. Thank you for watching this video, and until we see you next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting. Maybe the big stuff?